like I do when I'm just pushing work, right? When I'm just like, I'm gonna put my head, nose to the grindstone and keep pushing. And I found better improvements to my work ethic by focusing on health, which is maybe obvious to a lot of people, but based on the work ethic I've had in the past, wasn't so obvious.
Hey, Michael, welcome back onto the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here, and I'm glad to return. It was great doing the first one, and I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, I was telling you off channel that you're one of the most quoted guests on our show. We talk about you all the time, and you come back. You come up in conversation all the time because you're one of our first like quote unquote headliners. Like I was super stoked to have you on when we first started off. Here's this guy coming down from from downtown, running this like squashy like what's the agency, right? And you came all the way up to see us in Scarborough. And the first moment I met you, I was like just struck by like one, how young you were, and then two, the flowing long hair, right? Really,
The
it
trademark.
really, yeah, it was a trademark. And since then, man, we've been kept in touch. So I wanted to catch up officially on air. How you been?
Awesome. I've been good. I've been good. I just came off a vacation. Reminder to folks, if you haven't taken one in a while, it's good. It's good for your
Hmm.
mental health. I think it's been over a year for me, and yeah, I'm doing well. I just moved out to British Columbia. As I was just telling you, I'm in a log cabin here, and able to work remotely. And we're sort of about to hit a year of pandemic, and I've learned to enjoy it. I've adapted, so uh, doing well.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, you're in this beautiful log cabin I can see behind you. You're watching the sunset as we speak. That's not a bad way to run a company.
No, this is the corner office I always dreamed of. I didn't think I could have both, but uh, it's good for now. We'll see what happens once we can go back to offices, but for now, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of following you on social media about this. You did this whole kind of road trippy, kind of like work remote kind of like thing. I talked to a few entrepreneurs about this. They used the pandemic as a way, like obviously when things are on lockdown, to become like a digital nomad, right? Going into different spaces. As long as it's internet, you can work from anywhere. So why not work from somewhere that's interesting?
Absolutely, and it's internet and staying safe, and like there's nothing safer than a cabin in the woods where I don't see anyone besides the grocery store, and I get out for my hikes, and my neighbors are bears, so I can stay pandemic safe too.
Yeah, can you walk me through your day? Like, how do you like? Are you still working? Are you taking it completely offline?
No, I'm working. I mean, today we're coming up on a 12-hour day today, so still putting in a full work day, but through that I got a walk down to the end of my driveway in, which is better than it sounds, like mountain views everywhere, and on the weekends I can get out and ski or do different things, but uh, I found with more remote living, you don't have to travel to the good stuff. I was
Hmm.
in a cottage in tiny Ontario, a couple hours north of the city, and like I could get out for a half-hour lunch break and get a swim in because it was just down the block from me. So uh, full work days and long days, but then getting out for a 20-minute walk is pretty grand.
Yeah, I mean, at least you're making use of the lockdown. Like for me, I think I caught up with you about this. Like me and my wife, like we bought and moved into our first home like a week before the pandemic happened, and then we was like glued to the TV, like, oh my God, what is going to happen? Like what the world's shutting down, right? Things are going, locking down. We're in a state of emergency. And since then, like, we're still in that kind of mode. Like, it's kind of easy to like, kind of forget that we're in like a very unique position in like the past 100 years of history.
Right.
Like, it became like a normalized kind of thing. Wear your mask when you go out. Don't get too close to people, right? Stay in home,
Right.
stay indoors as much as possible. But for entrepreneurs, people who are grinding, this is a perfect place to stay productive. What I love about you is like you kind of work it in a way that's kind of sweet, where you get these like get an adventure and kick out of it. But like How's the work ethic been for you? Like, are you been throwing everything behind the wheel?
Yeah, I think when the pandemic started, I saw it coming early because a lot of our clients work with suppliers from China, and so
Mm,
and I've been to China before, and I started to see them shut down during not Chinese New Year, and I went, oh wow, this is real. And then I started pulling out all these different articles from like The Economist in Chicago in 1917 right away, and started reading on it and seeing what was the trend that was going to come, and what could be done to optimize towards it. Uh, from a work ethic perspective, that initial couple months of lockdown, we just went hardcore, right? And it was
mm,
7 days a week, and it was 12 or 14 hours a day. During the summer, we were able to ease off a little bit, and then, the early winter is our busy season, and there were periods there where it felt like we didn't have a break, and it was always on. And then in our world, right at the end of January, we were finally like, we're going to take a breath. I texted my CFO. We did it. We ran the company through 2020. We didn't fire a single person. We didn't lay anyone off. We had perfect retention through that entire thing. It was eventually good for us, but it looked pretty rough in the beginning. And it was like 1 week later that iOS 14 is announced, and there's no break whatsoever, which is a big change in my world. So now we've done
yeah.
all the adapting to that, and I would say my work ethic, it's been one of my hardest working years, not just in the business world, but personally.
Mm,
I spent a lot of time figuring out what I really want and figuring out my own routines and how I'm going to work. And I think for entrepreneurs who have reached a certain threshold of success, it's the best thing that you can do is take a step back and look at the way you're personally living. Then you're not going to get more incremental work out of trying harder as much as you are out of getting 8 hours of sleep or getting that exercise in or eating right. And those changes for me don't always feel like I'm pushing it like I do when I'm just pushing work, right? When I'm just like, I'm going to put my nose to the grindstone and keep pushing. And I found better improvements to my work ethic by focusing on health, which is maybe obvious to a lot of people, but based on the work ethic I've had in the past, wasn't so obvious.
yeah. I remember you were telling me about, the struggle with that. It's like sometimes like you get so busy and work. Like you grab the first thing you can to eat. You just keep kind of going. It's kind of cool that you're taking this time to like kind of reflect back on yourself and try to improve that. Absolutely. I mean, we've been hearing this kind of this self-help kind of talk coming into entrepreneurship and talking to them from just not just a mental standpoint, but from a health standpoint, how to better take care of yourself. Not just like for the sake of it, but it makes you more effective, makes you more of an operator. I do
Totally.
want to I do want to tie back to like one of the main things is like you service an industry that pretty much went on a hockey stick growth, right? I
Right.
love the fact that you're taking the time to like talk about maintaining yourself, and I was telling you before we started recording, like you look good, man. You look fit, you
Thanks,
look
man.
healthy, right? Taking those swims must definitely that mountain air must definitely be hitting you. But like how do you deal with that, right? Like we heard a lot about industries that took a nosedive, the restaurant industry and physical spaces, entertainment went down nosedive. But there's a lot of industries that just went completely haywire, and nothing was more
Right.
crazier than the e-commerce space, right? It was what quoted three years worth of growth happened in 3 months, right? Can you take us
Right.
through that period? Like what, like as a service-based industry in that environment, what did that look like for you? Was it crazy? Was it like were you getting customers coming in phoning you for once? Like how did that look like?
Yeah, I think, it wasn't so clear when it was happening. And so hindsight
Mm,
is 50-50 on this, that e-commerce was going through the biggest growth pattern ever, right? But we were fairly well diversified. We had clients in the travel space, we had clients in insurance, we had clients in a bunch of different spaces, right? And so uh, the one that we were super sure about was groceries and goods. We
yeah.
have In a Buggy as a client. They've been with us basically since we launched, and we knew that one was going to do well. But it was sort of trickling, and it's funny what's growing and not growing in e-commerce. So out of the gate, I think there was a lot of scare, and I know some other agency owners who laid off half their team in the first two
Mm.
weeks. Right? They just hit the panic button.
Hey, we're back on. Had some technical issues there, but what were we talking about again? We're talking about data and privacy.
You had a really interesting question lined up. I think it was, what's the effect of all of these algorithmic changes coming through, and what's the long tail of those changes? Did I get that question? Was that what
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
asking?
I think you
Excellent.
made it
Well,
sound a lot better than I asked it, but
you know, I think it's a really interesting question. It's something I think about. Um, it, I think there's a permanence thought here that like Facebook is it and it's it forever. But we're still in the early stages of this, right? And I think the hope that we have to have uh, is that we can make this better, and that we will have platforms that allow for great targeting and advertising. And I talk to people all the time. Like censorship was a big thing that I really wasn't for censorship. It really pissed me off. I was looking at like what can you do about it, and there's what looks like right now a monopoly in the space, and
mm,
it's almost stagnant right now, right? Like these
yeah.
these platforms, TikTok, which is a little different, is coming out, but then sort of stopped for good reason. I think the hope has to be that these algorithms develop for good in a better way, that the next iteration of them that comes out, that inevitably will come out, right? The competition can only be stuffed down so hard. Uh, that they support more of that, positivity, and they're not encouraging 13-year-old girls to become depressed as much as Instagram definitely was, right? Uh,
Hmm.
and and I think if you want to be hopeful, it's a progression there. There's like it could get worse too. That's the flip side. But I think I want to be hopeful and say that there's a progression here that it feels like a long time to us, 20 years, but
Hmm.
it's the first of its kind, right? It's the first newspaper. It's the first super major one, uh, and there will be iteration here, and hopefully that iteration comes for good.
Yeah, I mean, a few news cycles ago, back when the Trump era was still a thing, it feels like forever ago, but uh, with Trump, like and TikTok, right, really kind of sparked a debate about now that like the Silicon Valley style of consumer apps is being adopted globally, but by like a Chinese-led company, by Eastern Bloc nation, where data privacy is completely different and utilized. The question of how can this be weaponized against us became mainstream, right? Um,
Yeah, and I think it's always interesting when that comes up, right? I
yeah.
lived in China for a little bit, and what I found fascinating there, it's very easy to make that weaponized, dangerous data argument, and people really resonate with that. But there's an economic argument there too, right? Like
Mm,
there's a Facebook in every country by Facebook. Portugal doesn't see any of that ad revenue as taxed. They don't have the employees, right? I mean, I don't know if
yeah.
there's a Facebook office in Portugal, but assuming there's not, right? They don't get that benefit. Uh, you know, like Congo doesn't get that benefit, and
Hmm.
so like what China did economically makes sense, right? We're going to allow Google. Our people are going to be searching. That's the way things go. We're going to have that as domestic revenue with domestic employees, right? Uh, I think TikTok is like a little tit for tat from an economic perspective as much as any real data and privacy concerns. Uh, but it's really like not equal, right? Like Google's gone,
Hmm.
so we're going to take Google and Facebook aren't there, so we're going to take away TikTok, right? Like none of the Western social networks, payment platforms, et cetera, are allowed in China. And you
Hmm.
see that they have their own diverse and thriving ecosystem because of it. So
Hmm.
I understand China's incentive, but it's going to close up borders on things, and it's really like TikTok was a sacrificial lamb, I think, to that economic difference.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook also came recently into hot water because in Australia they passed unanimously saying that Australian news organizations need to be compensated for their content being on Facebook, and Facebook just like shut the doors to all Australian news media content on Facebook,
Right.
right? So I think like legally speaking, like a lot of nations are kind of like tiptoeing back and forth about like what's allowed, what's not allowed, what model to follow, what not to follow. But going back to TikTok, TikTok as an ad platform just launched. I just got an update email saying that TikTok for Business is now open, and and it's available. Um, what is the? Is there any interest there as an ad network, as like for as a consumer block? It has mostly Gen Z in there, but there's also a lot
Right.
of millennials and a lot of other people. What do
Well,
you
the
feel
thing
about
about
TikTok marketing?
Gen Zs are going to grow up fast, and they're going to be purchasers in not that long. Uh,
Yeah.
so we're a super specialized agency, right? For people who haven't watched the first one, we focus specifically on Facebook and Instagram ads. TikTok is the first thing that's caught my attention that I'm now exploring.
Mm.
I talked with their account reps a year and a half ago. Their platform was privately opened. If you owned a premium Facebook agency, they give you a quote. You could buy TikTok ads. You could only buy one way. It was a flat banner. You had to take over all of Canada for the day. It cost $60,000 for the day, which is probably underpriced, but wasn't tracked. And I don't do things that aren't tracked, right? Like I want to see if the dollars
Hmm.
make sense. The platform now is interesting to me because of how creative it is. That's where I see longevity there. Like when I see the sea shanty video and the iteration that happens there, Instagram never did something that cool. Like Facebook
Hmm.
never did something that cool, right? They're really creating content, and I mean, frankly, I say this to my creative team all the time, right? I've got 8 full-time people who work on ad creative all the time. Our competition is not our competition. We're better. Like we run great ads, we know that, right? Our competition is TikTok because Instagram's
Mm.
monetized TikTok more than TikTok has monetized TikTok. Because how much of the Instagram newsfeed is video recordings of TikToks now, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
our ads follow TikTok. If we want to grab attention, we have to beat the TikTok, and
Hmm.
we can beat them or join them, right? There's a billion people on there trying to be the most engaging thing every single day. And as smart as our team is and how much we can beat other advertisers, we're not going to compete well against a billion people. So we take a lot of inspiration from TikTok now. We look at how can we take something recorded with the phone and upscale it because they clearly found a really engaging concept. The boot clip or sort of outfits being changed, and it was a funny breaking down with our team of that wasn't done in Premiere. It wasn't done on specialized machines and hardware. It wasn't shot with a 4K camera. There's an arrogance that can come really quickly with getting to the top of the old industry, right? And we've, in the course of the last year and a half, leveled up all of our equipment, leveled up all of our software, leveled up everything. Like we're there. We're not at movie professional level, but we're top of our industry. And I want to chop that down all the time and go, record it on a phone, edited it on a phone, way more views than any of our ads, right? Like got people super interested. And I'm not talking about, TikTok for product purchase, those aren't great, but just regular organic TikToks. And if you came up with that strategy, that ad would have had 100 times return on ad spend. Like it was brilliant.
Mm.
And I'm not sure that, the individual TikToker, like some of it's people stumbling on it, but they're doing brilliant work and they're doing it for free. And it's really a compelling platform in that way. In terms of the ad platform, it's something I'm starting to explore. I'm hearing mixed results from people who've been on it. I'm going to get in there and test for myself. I think with these new platforms, it's tough for them to compete with the standard that Facebook has set. It's the best ad platform that's ever existed for generating new customers, right? Uh, it's hard to catch up to that. Snapchat never has. Pinterest, not even close. Reddit, don't waste your time, right? Like Facebook
Mhm.
and Instagram are the best ad platform out there. The only thing that competes is Google for people who are already searching for your product. But if you have a new
Mm.
product to display, YouTube ads suck. So it's really going to be tough for TikTok to get to a level that's compelling. But if you're a wise advertiser, people said the same thing about Instagram. Gosh, I forget who I was talking to once. It was a VT or someone, and he was like, "Facebook's already over. It's already over. The people on there are
Mhm.
40. But all that matters is
Yep.
a 16-year-old." And I was like, "You're nuts." But you see, if you have a little patience, uh, it matures, and those people are the main buyers, like the people on Instagram are
Yep.
now. So I'm gonna dip my toe in TikTok. I'm gonna get familiar with it. My hopes aren't too high.
Yeah. I spoke to a few people in this space, and they said the same thing. Like one of the tropes is like, why is there no ads on TikTok? Is because Gen Z are not buyers. They don't have the money to buy, at least not yet, right? And it's mostly a Gen Z market space.
Right.
But again, there's a lot of brands on TikTok because they understand there's a growing segment. So one of the things that was really interesting that I recently found out is that Gen Z is one of the biggest generation groups in 100 years. So
Right.
in North America, Gen Zs are 30% of the population. There's like 60 million people who are in the Gen Z age group, and they're set to inherit $40 trillion worth of wealth, right, from the boomer
Right.
generation, their grandparents, right? The money's not going to the kids; it's going to the grandkids, and that's Gen Z and the generation that follows afterwards, Generation Alpha, right? So one of the tropes is also like is watching that segment and how they behave and how they kind of like consume information because that's going to be the market, very quickly.
Now, do we get to complain about them like boomers complained about us millennials, or do we have to wait it to skip a generation? 'Cause I'm ready to
I
go to
think we,
Gen Zers.
I think we have to. Like
We
they hate
have to,
us.
right? What is there that we
Gen
can't like about them? Let's get some blog posts out there.
I
Yeah.
mean, they're the ones who are just addicted to their phones, right? But what's really funny is Gen Z making fun of millennials and millennials not knowing they're millennials. Like a lot of millennials don't realize they're actually millennials. They don't actually know what they are,
Yeah.
right? Like, so I have a lot of friends we were actually talking about this recently, and they're like, they're like, like we were talking about Gen Z, and they're like, someone's like, yeah, they're just like millennials. I'm like, dude, you realize we're millennials,
Right.
right? Like, and then people don't understand that, like, because the boomer generation made fun of millennials, people internalized that and made fun of themselves and didn't
Right.
realize they are millennials. But I mean, going beyond that, like this market segmentation, right, is really interesting to me. Like after I started looking into population graphs of like who fits in these kind of population curves. How do you study this, right? Like you probably
Oh,
go at a deeper level, right?
totally. I've got the most scientific method, which is a bunch of little siblings. So I get to see all the striations via my little siblings. My youngest brother's 15, so I still got someone in there. After that, one of my older siblings is going to have to start having grandkids for my parents and nieces and nephews, so I can check in with them. It's actually crazy how useful it is because you can do all the googling that you want, and you're not going to find out that like group texts are so lame, and why aren't you on Discord? Like why aren't you on Snapchat? Why aren't you on this and that? So I have used that actually really to my advantage to talk to my little sister who is now 19, so she sort of is moving up through that cohort. My brother who's 15, and say, "What are you guys doing? What are you on? What's the platform? Cool, I'm gonna go there." And I'm like, they're like, "No, no, it's lame. Like, why are you on this platform now? We don't want you here." But I'll go in and I'll check it out, and I check out all the different platforms when they come out. In terms of more in-depth stuff, gosh, it is useful to understand people who are in the demographic, right? Because you don't understand things from a third-party perspective. I had this talk with my team members. I'm like, who's on TikTok? Show up. Whoever isn't on TikTok, here, you can take off the rest of the afternoon. You're getting on TikTok, you're scrolling through TikTok. That's your homework. That's what you need to do. Like, we need to stay on top of these things. And, it's interesting to watch it happen. I think that generation is very sophisticated with their phones, but they're a little more optimistic or preppy than millennials were. Like a
Hmm.
little less cynical. They're more cynical and less cynical. More cynical about news, more cynical about technology, more cynical about information. But they're like less cynical. Like I could not imagine a high school where you made a TikTok that you see out there now of this campy shit, and that you went in the next day as a millennial and you didn't get everyone making fun of you that entire day. Like there is a more openness there, which I think is really cool. I wish our generation did more like that. And so it's interesting to see that rise. I think I look at another thing. This is just sort of random, but I look at the size of logos on T-shirts, and I remember if you like 2008, like American Eagle, Hollister, Aeropostale, right? It was like taking you over. Like you could carry the swinging sign of Aeropostale, and that was cool. 2008 hits, and it's like boom, black T-shirts, no logos, right? And if you think about this generation, they haven't been through a recession. I mean, COVID now they have. Prior to COVID, they hadn't, right? And so that's changing, and you see like the logos are coming back on the T-shirts. You see some of these things coming back, and so they had a very different attitude growing up there. It's interesting to see like what is the effect of COVID going to be on that generation. I think we're going to have like shut-ins be a lot more common, and not I'm not saying it in a pejorative way because like I'm living in a cabin in the mountains and I like it, but I think a lot of those trends are going to continue, and remote work is like par for the course. That generation is not showing up to an office.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you got it right there. Like remote work, I think previous to the pandemic was 4% of the population work remotely. Now we're at 40%. We're floating around there. And the more time goes on, more people are used to it and more businesses are getting used to it. And I don't think that's going back. But like, going back to that idea of like, location, 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 right? Like why were you in the city? Why was anyone going into downtown core? Is because by being close to the action, where a dense environment, you're close to where things are happening, right? It used to be that if you wanted to get connections, go somewhere, you can go to an event, you can go to a conference. Now that's all shifted, right? So
Right.
the internet has kind of democratized, connections, but where's the town square? Where do we gather to find nuance and connection, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's really tough. What I'm setting up at Acquire is so once a month we're going to take a half day off on Friday, and people are going to meet up, and we have a great agency that helps us plan events. Shout out Bank, they're awesome, and they're going to help us plan these events where our team can meet up and get to know each other and hang out. Conferences are still on the table, all these different ways of meeting up. But the uh, you know when I think back to what we were doing, like I lived 8 blocks from the office in the condo I didn't like, near an office that I like the office and I like being with the team, but we all went there and sat in front of our computer screens all day. And I had employees who commuted an hour and a half every day to go to the office and sit and say, I don't want to be distracted and try to find a quiet corner before getting in their car and driving an hour and a half or taking 6 different connections on the streetcar and
Yeah.
subway to go back to their home. Like that was insanity. That was crazy. We were able to do this whole time, right? So I don't think connection happened every single day. I think it happened once in a while. And I think there's a lot of people now who I know on our team didn't like going to the office who now miss the office the most. And I find that very funny of that romantic feel of the office. And I think a lot of life was connected with the idea of the office. And so people want to go back to the office because they want to go back to life. But once you start going
Mm.
back to life, you're going to see you don't need that much office. Um, that's my take on it. I have people on my team who are disagreeing, who are pushing hard to get an office. So I'm sure there's lots of different voices on this. Personally, I
Yeah.
feel like how much of that is like super necessary. Like our team is more efficient without a doubt, remote, more efficient, right? We get more done. It's more organized. It's more trackable. The top performers objectively stand out better than before. In an office, it's way harder to tell who's a top performer, in my opinion, because some people are really good at appearing to be a top performer, and then when you put them on these objective measuring pieces via CRM, like you have to do when you're a remote team, you see, oh, their output actually isn't that high, and they're not in front of me every day, and I don't get that vibe like of people shipping it in and making a really focused walk to the through the office to look like I'm getting so much done to go sit on Netflix.
Hmm.
So I think uh, top performers are rewarded. I think the biggest thing missing from the office, I talked to a lot of other CEOs, and CEOs miss it, and I think uh, they're not going to like I'm saying this, but the CEOs who really miss being in person, there's a feeling when you're a leader at a company and you're in person and you get up to make an address and everyone looks at you and it feels like, wow, I am a leader. And there's something like primal to it of like, people are looking up to me. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of CEOs are craving that feeling more and they don't want to say that. So there's a ton of justifications around, well, the productivity of creative meetings, like, cool, were you not creative this year? But you
Mm.
objectively were creative. Oh, we don't have this, all of these reasons that come up for why remote working is a problem, I think are pretty weak and false. Uh, and the biggest thing missing is that feeling of being admired. Uh, but I think if you can let that go, it's a okay to be remote.
Yeah. I mean,
I just
I think you brought. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
just pissed off a lot of CEOs. but I'll
Yeah.
stand by it.
No, I think that's a really interesting point, and I'm glad you said that, because you're absolutely right. Like, part of being a CEO or part of being like a founder is you take a leadership role, right?
Right.
There's some people who shy away from it and they're like, shit, I have to do this. It's part of, building what I'm doing. But other people gravitate to it. It's one of the main reasons they do what they do. They love being in a position, not just of power, but being of influence, right?
Yep.
Have people look up to you. And that visual you kind of put up, right? Like going to work every day and people literally metaphorically looking up to you. You're standing in front of them and you're talking to them. You're giving direction, giving guidance, right? In front of, whether it's a boardroom or a meeting room, or like on like the den, like the floor of a contact center, right? Like you want, like there's a certain kind of nuance there for a leader,
Right.
right? Now, kind of going back to like kind of what we talked about, I just want to get your opinion on this, right? Like going back to the conversation of platforms and connecting to people, right? Another platform that's kind of been kind of booming is the platform of voice. Voice as a platform, right? It started off first with the smart speakers with Alexa and Google, moved to suddenly with podcasts. Podcasts started, popping up really fast, and then now Clubhouse, right?
Yeah.
Clubhouse as a town
Exploding.
square is exploding. What are your thoughts on like voice as a platform?
Yeah, Clubhouse is so interesting. Like my notebook has like do a Clubhouse written in it every single day. I'm working with my team to just like turn it on, and I think that's a really cool thing about it is how easy it is to just turn on. I think the way we're setting up this podcast is cool. Like it can just go. Um, I think voice as a platform is interesting. I just wonder if there's as many people listening as there are talking on some of these platforms, And I think a lot of the people who are on Clubhouse are there because they want to self-promote, which I also want to do, so I don't have a problem with. I just wonder, is it going to catch a more mainstream zeitgeist? And maybe this community is big enough and it's just replacing all the fireside chats and tech events that you used to go to, and
Hmm.
now it's all on Clubhouse. It's not as favorable for everyone, right? It sort of helps the people on the top. It sort of helps the people who
Hmm.
already have following. And that's tough, and it's going to get more like that. It's in a golden era right now. It's really easy to get into. I think if someone's listening to 6 months from now, they're going to be like, Clubhouse is a done game. Like, it's cemented. These are the top people. The influencers are already there. I think get in now. Like, get in then. It's not too late, but um, podcasts are huge, but Pareto distributions are something I think about all the time. So in that distribution, right, like the top 1% of the top 1% has the majority of the success. Like of classical music, the top 1% of 1% of pieces are listened to 99% of the time, right?
Hmm.
And so it's going to go that way too. Um, I don't know, that doesn't answer sort of how that comes as an age-old platform. It's an interesting place to develop, and it's a game I'm not really in besides the
Yeah.
podcast I do with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I got into it last week. Literally, one of my favorite guests on the podcast called me up and said, like, you have to be on this. I've heard of Clubhouse, but I'm on Android. I'm a Google fanboy by nature. Everything I own is for Google. Tell me how, first time in 10 years, I actually got an iOS device just to get on this
Awesome.
thing, right? And I've been
Awesome.
stuck, man. Like I've been on this. So with Clubhouse, one of the best quotes I've heard about it is like, podcasting is like the album, where Clubhouse is the concert,
Right.
right? It's like they kind of fit hand in hand, but it kind of goes in together. So, as a podcaster, I'm like, we jumped in there, and now, we're bringing like past guests that came on, and we'll do a one-to-one show, and we can do a one-to-many show or many-to-many kind of show, right? Where we can like bring in speakers and like, okay, what do you think? And now you can run a panel just like you have to previously run like a tech event, like you said, right? We can now do it ethereally on this and discuss ideas, get things out. And I know what you're talking about. Like there's some channels where it just seems like pure self promotion. People is coming on to promote. But I think the most rewarding ones that people really find attuned to are the ones where people come in and just talk about deep topics
Right.
or personal stories, and it becomes a new interaction to connect, right? Do you
I'm
see like a? Sorry, go ahead.
I'd love to do one with you if you ever want to do one. I think there's a lot of opportunity to innovate there too, man. I think the people aren't using it to its full potential, right? They'll just like pass a topic around. Um, I think you could have debates on Clubhouse. That'd be really interesting. I think you could do all sorts of different things to get it to be more engaging. And it's something I'm thinking about for sure is how do I get in? I feel like I need to stop thinking and start doing. But how do you hit the oomph there? because I've sat on some and gone, like, maybe there's, maybe there's a bias of just having been in the industry and not getting started. And it's such a powerful thing for people who are just getting started in the industry, where you are getting a lot more of that information. But so it's interesting. I'd love to do one with you.
Perfect, man. Yeah. So I'm trying to do one daily now, every day at 8:30 to 10 o'clock EST.
Yeah.
Right. So after I hop off of this in 30 minutes, we're gonna jump into it. Love to have you there if you can,
Oh, for
but I'm
sure.
trying to do it daily, Monday to Saturday. I'm trying to over leverage on this. It's a growing platform. Definitely, I think when Android finally launches, a whole bunch of users gonna stream into it. Right. I think it's a great opportunity here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm down to do it tonight. Let's have fun.
Let's do it, man. Perfect. Let's wrap up. I know we didn't leave too much time to talk about the platform you're launching, but could you give us a quick summary of Fates.ai and how it's going to help the problems going to be kind of discussed?
Sure. So Fates.ai is something we've been working on for over a year. We've had a 5-person team going on it. It's our skunkworks division. We have written white papers. We work with PhDs. What we were trying to figure out is being perfectly precise in budget management for ads. And we went a long way in that direction, and then we realized we have to be perfectly accurate because most of the industry doesn't understand how they pick their return on ad spend, meaning everything that they're working towards is a goal all the time of saying for every $1 out, $1 in, I want $4 out. They bang their head against the wall all day. I want $4 out. What we see is that number was picked out of thin air, and it doesn't correlate to anything. And really, the number that they actually want, we've solved for it. There's a perfect way to solve for what makes it max profitability for you. It's a 3.2. It's not a 4. You've been running in the wrong direction the entire time, right? And sometimes we'll see an 8 on an account. People are going, I'm getting $8 out per dollar in. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And like, I have to go, that's stupid. It's really not the best way to run your account. It's impressive in a stupid way. That's a component of the platform that we're launching. There's some tools for attribution. And then in the long run, there's going to be tools for automation. So we sort of had a pivot with iOS 14. We've been doing a lot of machine learning, and we've been doing a lot of things with AI. And so we were able to quickly roll out a tool that's going to help with attribution. This is going to be a tool that's going to be built on consistently. So the next thing you're going to see is that the modeling tool, which is going to help you pick your return on ad spend, and then there will be more with deploying monthly strategies and ad automation to manage your budget super precisely. So it's sort of a live rollout, and right now it's in a free beta. So you're welcome to join the free beta, which is for the attribution tool, which is going to help you get through iOS 14 and then stay on for all the next features that are coming. It's eventually going to be a brokerage account for Facebook ads, and it's my passion project, the thing I think about all the time. I've been trying to make it happen for 3 years. We're a year into development. We're launching a really simple product because iOS 14 upset some of the other stuff we were doing. We figured out the solutions. We just need to build them. So get on early, and I'd love to have people on for a long time on that product.
Amazing, man. It's live now, right? People can find it on the website.
The beta is open. It's at Fates.ai. Right now, the beta is for the attribution tool. There's more tools coming, and the attribution tool is going to be useful when iOS 14 rolls out, which is still any day now.
Awesome. All right. Great to hear, man. Cool pivots. I'm really jealous of your cabin lifestyle you're living here. Going to be following along and living vicariously through you. But till then, let's keep in touch. Come on Clubhouse today. I'd love to have you on there. But till then, thanks for coming on, Michael.
Thanks, Robbie.
Yeah.